laughing at the three girls. And why? Because we're talking menopause in front of Al Gore. I mean, this is exactly the way I had it in my fantasy, right? It's exactly the way I pictured meeting the Vice President of the United States, being brought into his dressing room by his wife, who's comforting me about menopause, with Melissa Etheridge, who's also comforting me about how they took her parts out as well. I mean, it's a fantasy, right? That's the way you'd want to be introduced to the next President of the United States, and I don't care what he says. He is the next President of the United States. I mean, so, I'm just, stunned at this, and I'm embarrassed by it. Plus, I've got, the giant teeth now, because they're temporaries, I didn't have my teeth removed or anything, I just had them fixed, and so they put temporaries on while they're, making the new covers. Like, I'm being slip covered. My mouth hasn't gone through this much trauma since I French kissed Jimmy and, with braces on his teeth. Really, it's just like, oh, I'm traumatized by all this. So now I've got these big white teeth. I'm sweating from head. You want to see a picture? Go to airamerica.com and click on the Randi Rhodes Show, and you'll see we posted one picture. The rest are in the gallery. If you click on photos, it's the last gallery. I don't know why, but it's the last gallery, and you can see all the photos, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It is the most amazing thing I've ever been through in my whole life. And then after, we spent like an hour just talking about everything, and I mean everything. And I'm thinking to myself, after this, Cameron Diaz is hanging around, and Kevin Bacon. Oh, by the way, if you meet me, you're just 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon now. 1 degree. Yeah. Isn't that cool? I'm just 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon. But I'm thinking to myself, no wonder he doesn't want to run for president. When you get to hang out with Cameron Diaz, isn't that better than hanging out with Dianne Feinstein? Yes, it is better. So there you have it. I was just thinking, but he really, I mean, he has to run for president, and this is basically what I kept on, talking to him about for an hour and a half. And I told him, this audience cries. I explained to him the book challenge that we put out to you guys, and I told him exactly what I did. I said to him, I put a challenge to the audience because, The Assault on Reason, if you've read it, is really about the ability to reason. Why America seems unable to reason their way through difficult problems, because he lays it flat out straight out in the book that there is nothing that we are going through that is more trying, taxing, or scarier, or more deadly than, let's say, the period of American history known as the Civil War, when it was one of the bloodiest things that ever happened on the streets, like everywhere, here. Or the Revolution, where an invading army came, because oceans didn't protect us, they had boats and they came. Yeah, the English did. That's what I'm going to tell people now. I had English teeth. I had to, I'm Ukrainian. How do I get, from there? But anyway, so, he points out in the book that there is nothing that we are going through that is worse than anything we've been through. The difference seems to be that America used to communicate by the written word. They used to write pamphlets like Thomas Paine's Common Sense and, Age of Reason, and everybody was exchanging their pamphlets on how to create a democracy and why you didn't want the king's religion and why you wanted a separation of church and state. And there were many arguments about whether or not to separate out the church from the state, and they decided that they would because they wanted to preserve both, and that was the only thing that anybody could think of to preserve both democracy and the church. I mean, but there were brilliant letters, and the Federalist Papers got written, and, those were all letters. And Thomas Jefferson's letter to, the letter to Tripoli, saying we are not a Christian nation, and explaining why we chose to. But he does, in this book, say, and this is, before I even read it, he explains how the brain works differently when you're watching television to get information, and how the brain works differently when you're reading to get information, and that when you read, your brain is a part of your brain that reasons is activated, and when you're watching TV, which is passive, that part of your brain that reasons is deactivated. And that's in a nutshell. That's a very simplistic explanation, but it's amazing that we said we'd read this book together if 1,000 of you would tell me that you were going to do it. So I told him in a day I had 800 people saying they were going to do it, and we got to thousands of people saying they were reading this book, so we all did it. And then I was forced to have a book show, and I said to him, I didn't know how to have a book show. I'm a talk show host. And then I thought, what would Oprah do? And then I said to Tipper, and it dawns on me, I'm not freaking Oprah. And she said to me, "Oh, be yourself." I said, I was wearing black nail polish and black toenail polish. I said, well, if I campaign for you guys, I promise I won't wear black nail polish and black toenail polish. She goes, I like it. I think you should be yourself. I said, no, I promise I won't. But I explained to him that we had done that and that I was, in this position of having a book show and I didn't have him. So I didn't know exactly how to go about it because Oprah would have had him, say. She would have had, when she did Million Little Pieces, she had James Fry. She has Sidney Poitier to discuss his book. I couldn't have Al Gore. So I told him that we played the Martin Luther King Day speech and that it roughly mirrored a lot of the passages in the book, and that's how I handled it. And he was just like, oh, whoa, I'm going to introduce you to my deputy chief of staff. Hi, Beth. And we're going to hook this up and blah, blah, blah. And because I told him that you guys would cry because when you heard his Martin Luther King Day speech where he talked about COINTELPRO and how they wiretapped Martin Luther King and how unbelievably similar all that warrantless wiretapping was then to how it is now. That the audience was weeping, that I actually get crying phone calls from people that are just so stunned and unnerved to be waking up, to be finding out what the country has really been, doing in secret. And that when they hear Al Gore, it's one thing to hear me tell you, but it's quite another thing to hear a man of his stature and his brain and his intellect. And let me just tell you this about Al Gore. The reason why everyone wants Al Gore to run is because, and here's my analogy for the Republicans that are listening. He's like Fred Thompson, but with brains and a heart and an amazing love for this planet and this country that I have never seen before in my life. And I have met the 42nd President of the United States many times. I'm a very lucky girl in that way. But I have to tell you that man, Al Gore, this man, and his wife, Ann Karenina, oh God, is she a natural beauty. They have a love for this country that I haven't seen in a very, very long time, because this is the first time I've ever met him. I campaigned my little heart out for him, and I told him I voted in Palm Beach County and what happened. And he is a wonderful brainiac, an amazing human being who loves this country. I've never seen anything quite like it. It was really, so I have to thank Melissa Etheridge and Tipper for rescuing me from my hot flash, and that's how I got to meet Al Gore. And he laughed. He's like, look at my girls. I go, look what's happened to us. Oh, I think you're all beautiful. And he did. Here's a photo. I put my hands on his belly. I don't know why. And he didn't even flinch. He's like, no, it's okay. He's a wonderful guy, I gotta tell you. But Melissa Etheridge, salt of the earth, baby. Amazing woman. She is a hero and a friend. Amazing. Alright, it's 10 till.
You're listening to The Randi Rhodes Show. Transcripts available at Karl Rove's office. This is Air America Radio.